to see that place sometime. Yes, we've been trying to reach and build our image, our brand. And I've been working closely with Lehigh Valley Veterans Project. And I'm very pleased to tell you we have guests tonight from Lancaster Oral History Club. Dan's been here for day one. Take a bow, Dan. Okay? And the other Dan is right here, and he's been a big help to Dan Medberg. Would you please stand so they can see who you are? We very much appreciate the opportunity to work with other groups. Allentown, Lancaster, I'm talking to people in Hagerstown now, they have a World War II club. And I think if we can do that and build, we can share and keep this message going. We understand we're facing the clock, attrition, we're losing some great veterans. So we need to get this done now. Got that? Forgot my notes. 50 plus, yeah. One of the other things we're working on is online publishers in Columbia. We're working with them. They're going to do an article on our group in November. And that Flight Lieutenant Glory is going to be featured on that, sir. I look forward to that. You didn't know. Sorry about that. And then we've been working with them in a lot of other areas. They've also made their 50 plus newsletter. Have you seen that? They made it available to us. Thank you, Jerry. And there's some out on the table. Please help yourself. And I think it was Dauphin County, but we can also get from New York. And we'll be doing their expos in the next year, participating with them. But that's pretty much it. Tight meeting tonight, so I'll jump on.
I just can't tell you how much Charlie is doing. It's just incredible. Rounding up speakers well into months ahead, and you'll be the benefit of all that. Where's Bergen? Where are you? Oh, there it is. Quick note on your Vietnam roundtable.
Hi there. We run I run a Vietnam roundtable. It's next Thursday at the Vietnam Veterans Hall, 8000 Dairy Street in Harrisburg. We're going to have Jim Ferguson from Homestown here. He was with the AmeriCal division. Going to talk. We meet at 7:30 over at 8000 Dairy Street. And then the following month, we have two men from the 1st Air Cav Air Mobile going to talk. Jay Snyder from Lower Paxton and Reverend Dwight Edwards from Harrisburg.
Okay, thanks, Richard. Charlie, you want to say anything about the upcoming speakers quickly? Next couple months? And while he's walking around, let me remind you all, we are a all-volunteer organization. We have a special committee called the Helmet Committee. Most of you know. They'll be at the door on the way out if you care to make a deposit. We appreciate it. It'll cover costs.
And all those funds go directly to veterans. We don't keep any of the money. October, we have Bert Windsor coming. He's one of the original members of the Devil's Brigade that was formed in World War II with the Canadians and Americans. The beginning, the precursor of the Special Forces. That's in October, excuse me. In November, we have Art. A lot of people might remember Art from last month. He spoke on the battle for Normandy through Czechoslovakia, and now he's going to speak on another area. He has so much to talk about, we had to split him up. Commander of the Guard for the Nuremberg trials. So he dealt with the Gorings, Spears, Strikers, and he should have a very interesting presentation for us. And in December, we have Hank Hudzik, I think my first submariner. We might have some back. Rich could tell me if we had submariners before, but his first one I got. World War II, Battle of Midway, very interesting story. So we've got some very interesting people coming up.
Great. Okay, just a couple of quick notes. Normally I give a little rundown of what's been going on in the war, but we learned a month or so ago that the war in Europe was over by now in 1945. And as of yesterday, in 1945, the Japanese instrument of surrender was signed on the deck of the USS Missouri. 1945, yesterday. Okay, so anybody got anything else very important to say quickly? Good. Charlie, would you please introduce our speaker? You guys are really in for a treat tonight, and Charlie did a terrific job organizing this, so do your job, Charlie.
You keep making me get up. I'm an old guy. I really don't have to introduce Hilda, do I? We all know. I told her on the way over she's famous, but I think she's really infamous at the same time. We had a wonderful chat. I forgot my camera. So we go to my house to get my camera, and she meets my wife. So we're best of friends now. So, but I don't want to preclude her message. It's so very important. We're so thrilled to have you here to share your story with us, and I'm going to let you start it. Okay? You're on.
Okay. Can everybody hear me? Okay. My name is Hilda Mantelmacher. I was born in Czechoslovakia. Before the war, I had a father, mother, grandparents, and a little brother. I lived a normal life. Czechoslovakia was a democratic country, and I lived a normal life just like here, everybody else. I'm Jewish, but most of my friends weren't Jewish. They were Christians, and it didn't matter. We all believe there is just one God, and it doesn't matter if you go to the church on Sunday or you go to the synagogue on Saturday. Everything, I went to school, and everything was fine. I never knew that I am less because I'm Jewish. Till the Nazis occupied my country. When the Nazis occupied my country, they took away my father's restaurant, and they didn't let us go to school because I was Jewish. And then I felt that I am less than everybody else. I'm going to tell you my biography, and then I show you a documentary that I was liberated by the British in Bergen-Belsen. And after the documentary, you could ask me all the questions you like. My name is Hilda Mantelmacher. I was born in Czechoslovakia, but because I am Jewish, I was forced out of my country. The Nazis killed my parents, my grandparents, and my little brother. I'm here today, and I would like to share my personal Holocaust experience with you. I hope what I went through, no one else would ever have to go through. When you hear my personal Holocaust experience, I was only a little girl. Jewish people have always been a tiny minority struggling to survive in every country where they live. In Germany, many Germans never admitted their defeat in World War I, and they blamed it on the Jews. Hitler was a dictator. He came to power in Germany in 1933. He unleashed the Nazi nightmare of brutality on the whole world. The Nazis began their destruction with the Jews. The uniqueness of position of Jews in Nazi world, they had been singled out for total destruction. The only way of avoiding the death sentence was not to have been born Jewish. Jews couldn't walk the sidewalks, couldn't go to concerts, beaches, theaters, or museums. I told my mother it wasn't fair, because can I go every place else? My mother said the Nazis didn't like Jews. I asked my mother, why was I born Jewish anyway? My mother said, God chose the religion we are born into. I certainly would not deny anyone the God's creation. Jews were forbidden to go to school, couldn't have stores, couldn't work. Jewish doctors, dentists, lawyers found official warning posted at the door, a Jew, visitor prohibited. Synagogues were destroyed, all Jewish property was looted, and the Nazis burned all the books written by Jewish writers. As of January 1, 1939, all Jews had to carry an identification card and wear a yellow star, which marked us along as an outcast. On the eve of World War II, January 1939, Hitler said, "I'll kill all the Jewish race throughout Europe." The Jews came to be regarded as enemy number one, and the murder of the Jews became one of the aims for which the war was being waged. It could not have been made more clear that the Nazi government was determined to destroy Jewish people both physically and morally. We were buried on our streets and invaded in our homes. We were tortured, imprisoned, and murdered. All my Christian friends were not allowed to sit next to me at school just because I was Jewish. They moved away from me like I had developed the plague overnight. These kids were my friend yesterday, but today, because I was forced to wear a yellow star, they called me dirty Jew and yelled obscenities. I screamed, "I'll get the police." They left. What police are you going to tell? If the police cared about some Jews getting beat up. When I was a little girl, my parents had a restaurant, and when the police came in, my father always would give them free drinks, and my mother would always give them free food. When the Nazis occupied my country, the police didn't even come and help us. He pretended like he doesn't even know us, even though he used to play with me and my little brother. But when the Nazis came in, they didn't even care about it. They pretended not to know us. I started to run home as fast as I could. The Nazis were looking for women every night. My father put bars on our windows so the Nazis couldn't get in. So the Nazis broke the windows and set fire to our place. My father also made a secret summer shed to hiding us. So we were listening to footsteps at night. And when the footsteps we heard, we quickly run and hide. There were giant rats in the shed, but we girls would have rather died in the dark with the rats than being raped by the Nazis. We huddled together like frightened little animals and prayed that the Nazis wouldn't find us. We have the choice either turn bitter through our experience or come closer to God. My parents were very, very orthodox and prayed Friday nights, Saturdays, and holidays. But now my parents were constantly praying in the temple. Life after that night became a nightmare. Our chances for an undisturbed sleep were slim. We knew the Nazis would be back again. After all, who would bother to stop them? We had a curfew and could not leave our homes. We had to be packed, ready for the Nazis. We waited days and nights, knock on the door. We knew we could only bring with us what we could carry and what I had on. I spent my days roaming in the house that was full with suitcases. I couldn't play outside with my friends. Ghettos were set up, isolating all the Jewish population behind barbed wires. Ghettos suffered from overcrowding, hunger, no fuel for cooking. Ghetto life was difficult and degrading. When the Nazis came for us, they took my mother's wedding ring and my earrings out of my ears. The most terrible thing that happened when I saw my father cry. My parents for many years, and my mother had never taken off her wedding ring. I still feel the painful memory daily and still frightens me. While we were walking to the ghetto, I felt so ashamed because my friends, the one I went to school with and played with, watched me carrying a bigger package than myself. The ghetto was established at the former brick factory. It could have perhaps housed 2,000 people, yet 14,000 people were made to live inside. 6 families lived in one room without furniture on only floor of cement. There were no bathrooms, so we had to improvise something that had an awful, depressing, and demoralizing effect on us. They took us out to work, gathered all the Jewish property that was left behind, and they make it so we had to sort it out, and they sent all belongings to their own family to Germany. The Nazis always escorted us to work. While I walked, my Christian friends prayed on the street and spared us. We were then taken from the ghetto in Czechoslovakia and packed like sardines in sealed railroad cattle truck. When the cattle truck arrived and they pushed you in, and if they pushed you in and you fell and you sit down, then you had to sit on the same place for 3 days and 3 nights. And if they pushed you in and there was no room where to sit, you had to stand same place 3 days and 3 nights. 3 full days. What happened is they put a dish to go in the bathroom, but the cattle car was so full, nobody could move. So just wherever we stood, we went. When the cattle car locked up from outside, people started screaming, crying. Nobody could get to the buckets, so we were standing. The cattle car became like an open sewer, smelled in a few seconds. People started screaming and losing their mind. Below, the cattle car became like a mental institution. Many people, and then we arrived in Auschwitz. Auschwitz, the death camp, was very well planned and organized. When we entered Auschwitz, there was a big welcome sign, lots of happy music at the entrance. Dr. Mengele, who was called the Angel of Death, was a tall man who looked slim and fit in his spotless uniform. He was the one who chose to live or die. He greeted us with big German shepherd dogs. Dr. Mengele had a cruel face and carried a whip in his hands. The whip moved sometimes to the right and sometimes to the left. If he whipped to the left side, you die immediately. You're sent to the gas chambers. And if you whipped to the right side, you live in torment a little longer in slave labor for the Nazis. None of us had the slightest idea of the sinister meaning behind the pointing, no to the right and no to the left, but far more frequently to the left. The left meant you were sentenced to die and forced to enter a shower, which were actually gas chambers. They were given a piece of soap and a towel. An SS officer told them, breathe deeply. He said it would help their lungs stay healthy by disinfecting them and preventing them from getting sick. Within a short time, only their ashes would remain. Any person that couldn't walk were put in pretend the Red Cross ambulance and were sent to the dead in the gas chambers. When we as people gotten there before us, when we arrived in Auschwitz, there were people who worked there before us, and they told us that make sure all of you are healthy, don't ever say that you're sick, and make sure you, even no matter how old you are, you say you're 18, because if you are younger, you're going to die. And if you're sick, you're going to die. And they disappeared. They were scared too. So when we went and Dr. Mengele just took us and showed us where to go, we did it. When we asked people there before us, they would say, how we get out from Auschwitz, first the gas chamber, then the crematorium. Children was fit for hard labor were attained by Dr. Mengele at selection for forced labor, starvation, cold, inadequate sanitary conditions, disease, and cruel treatment, finally liquidating them too. Dr. Mengele came to the cattle car and he asked parents, he said he's a doctor, he introduced himself, and he asked parents who has twin children. And parents who had twin children gave it the children to Dr. Mengele because the children were hungry and thirsty and dirty. So Dr. Mengele, he's a doctor, he's probably going to wash them and clean them and take care of them. So the parents gave the children to Dr. Mengele, and Dr. Mengele used the twin children. He put the parents in the gas chambers, and he took the twin children, and he used them for painful, gruesome medical experiments. I had been stripped naked. I was so embarrassed that my cheeks got hot because the Nazis were watching me. I felt so degraded. I tried to cover my naked body with my arms, but the Nazis shook me, dragged me, slapped me until I saw stars. Then he said, you are here to obey, or you'll end up in smoke. I learned very fast that I was to do exactly what I was told, without questioning. I learned what fear is. The Nazis marched me through a tray of smelly disinfectant. I was issued one of the potato sack vessels. As a final indignity, my head was shaved. They took everything away from us. We had no calendars, not even a picture of our parents. No mirrors, but we could feel our degradation. When they cut our hair, or had anybody, anything of their body, anybody had any hair, they would put it in a bag and save the hair and send the hair to Germany. And they used the hair for pillows, mattresses, whatever they needed, they used the hair. We had no undergarments to wear, no socks, and only wooden clogs on our feet. They made me blisters, yet I had to march in them. The blisters were open and it hurt to walk on them. We had no medicine or bandages. I still could feel the pain today. One girl tried to sit down because her feet were sore. The guards clapped her on her head and screamed, "March faster." The blisters on my feet burned like fire. I beat my lips from pain and marched. I prayed and wished God would come and help me. When I was a little girl, my parents, especially my mother, would say, "God is everywhere. You can't do nothing wrong that God doesn't know." So God is everywhere. So when I saw what was happening in Auschwitz, I looked up and I thought God gonna come down, but he didn't. The road is full of sharp pebbles. I'm afraid of limping because I don't want to die. I was separated from my parents, my little brother, my grandparents, and they disappeared, and I never ever saw them again. My parents, fundamentally incapable of hatred or violence, in love with life, were exterminated in Auschwitz crematorium. I don't even have a grave to weep on. Oh, last night together on the cattle truck, my mother said, "Most people are good. We will work hard and no one will ever hurt us." She said even if the same people who took poison because they just couldn't stand the suffering, they just kissed and hugged and died in each other's arms. Some older people and babies died from heat and thirst. If I couldn't believe today that my parents, my grandparents, my little brother are in heaven, I couldn't go on. I see them every day. They have to be in heaven because they had hell on earth. I couldn't live not knowing that they are in heaven. My father said, we have to be strong. The German people are so educated, so well behaved, they would never hurt us. When I was in Auschwitz, I had a girl with me. She started crying, she's not Jewish, and why is she with the Jewish people? Dr. Mengele came and put her in the gas chambers. But that girl was blonde and blue-eyed. She lived on my street, and we all knew that she wasn't Jewish because she went to church every Sunday, and she had Christmas tree, which we didn't, we had Hanukkah. And so we knew that she wasn't Jewish. And Dr. Mengele put her in the gas chamber. And she was blonde, with the Nazis wanted everybody to be blonde, in blue eyes. That's the only people should be alive. And she was, but she had to die because she was Jewish. And I just couldn't believe it because she didn't even know that her family background, many generations back, somebody was Jewish. So to Adolf Hitler, she still was Jewish, even though she didn't know it. We lived in huge barracks. It was filled with triple-decker bunks. No blankets, no pillows, just wooden bunks. I cried for my parents. Someone said, "Do not cry if you want to leave." So I prayed to God quietly and talked to God secretly, while I was told if I cried, they come and take me away. We all got prisoners' numbers. Our names had to be forgotten if we were to leave. Many people got number tattooed on their arms. I don't have a tattoo, because the Nazis hadn't bothered tattooing prisoners they intended to send in the gas chambers. I needed to go to the bathroom, but I could only go when the guards told us to go. The bathroom was a narrow dirt ditch with a board overhead. Many holes got into it. I was so ashamed. We all had to sit down on the bedroom at the same time and get up at the same time, but the Nazis were watching over us. And they arrived in Auschwitz. I heard the prayers and screaming of people. If people couldn't jump fast enough off the cattle truck, they were dragged. Right there, they were killed. Sick and old people were dragged out of hospitals and nursing homes. If they couldn't walk, they were killed. Many times I saw bodies hanging to the electric fence that surrounded us. In Auschwitz, we had electric fence. A lot of people just got so depressed, they just couldn't stand the suffering and the beating and the hunger. They just went, touched the electric fence, and they died. But what happened is if a Nazi shoots them before they touch the electric fence, they would get 2 weeks vacation and all kind of packages, all goodies, if they could shoot the person before touches the electric fence. I thought there were no more people left on the earth. I thought I was in hell. I just couldn't believe it, that what did I do wrong? Why does it happen to us? I just couldn't understand it. Gold teeth were extracted from all corpses, and the ashes were used as fertilizers. After the woman's head was shaved, their hair was spun into thread. It was used for mattresses, pillows, warmers for Nazis' boots. During our working hours, the SS-men women who stood guard over us would beat us with a whip and send their dogs on us. Many of my friends had their legs torn by the dogs, and I never saw them again. Some people who didn't understand German at all, and they get some things they were told to do, and they didn't do it because they didn't understand it. German Shepherd dogs would just tear them apart. Even today, I live with that, with the dogs. When I see the Nazis with suitcases and boxes of gold teeth, I wondered which teeth was my mother's. Nazis placed us in concentration camp workers as human strategically located munition factories and bridges. Allied forces dropped bombs, blowing up bridges at night. American bombed us during the day, the British bombed us at night. We built underground shelter for the Nazis, yet we were not allowed to go down to the shelter during the raids. We wondered if the bombers would pass us over, or our place would be the target for the night. When the bombs came, and I was working in Hamburg, Germany, I was working there, and the bomb came, and we didn't know nothing what's happening in the world. So when the bomb fell, then I knew that the war is still going on. So we were very happy that the Nazis didn't win the war. So when the bomb came, it was really good for us, because we knew that even if not everybody going to be alive, but some of us will be. So I prayed for the pilot's safety, so they continued the bombing. I just sat and prayed and waited. Every bomb that exploded filled us with joy and gave us new confidence in life. While the Nazis took over the shelter by the factories where we were working, we were left standing outside while the bombs fell on us. Many of my friends died, but we were not afraid of dying because the bombs brought us home. I worked as a slave laborer with constant hunger in my stomach. Once a day, they gave you a little turnip soup. If you stood in the front of the line, you only got a little water. But if you stood end of the line, there was no soup left over. As a one time a day, they gave you a little piece of bread that's made of sawdust and cornstarch. And this little brick had to last the whole day. But most of us covered it up right away. We were always thirsty and hungry. Food, water became the most important thing in our life. First, when we were separated from our parents and family, we always thought of them. And later on, we didn't think of anything but water and bread. That's all we thought about. We were always so thirsty and hungry. We thought of little heirs and our need for water and food. We tried to remember how food and water tasted. We were transporting materials in factories and lorries that we had to push. We unloaded wagons of iron bars and heavy cement sacks. Our job was to rebuild factories and pigs and shovels. We had to build streets and carry train tracks. Since the Germans needed bricks, we had to carry them from the barn buildings. We had to dig ditches for the Nazis so they could resist our liberators. The shovel was bigger than I was. My arms were aching. The German people looked at us while I worked, and I wondered if they even cared about all this skeleton. They pretended not to see us. We got used to undeserved slaps, blows, and execution. We got accustomed to seeing people die. The Nazis were always guarding us, yet we had no place to go. We trembled with weakness, knowing all the time that anyone who broke down would be beaten to death. This was the indirect road to death. Life under the constant threat of the smoking chimney was draining us little strength we had left. Those who had become unfit for service were quickly replenished again and again by fresh deliveries of Jews. We worked the whole day, standing in the pouring rain or snow for 3-4 hours, waiting for roll call. We went in bed close to bed, woke up next morning in the dark, and chilled to the bone, and was forced to work again, barely having enough strength to stand. When the Allied soldiers were coming, the Nazis marched us to Bergen-Belsen, another concentration camp. I couldn't believe what my eyes saw. The dead had not been removed for days. They had been simply piled up in the corners. The worst of all was seeing occasional movement among the stacked bodies, finding raised hand looking for lies. I didn't think I could make it one more step. I knew my days were numbered. I saw my girlfriend in a pile, apparently innocent of everything, but being born Jewish. In Bergen-Belsen, we had nothing to do but take away the dead. We were not strong enough to carry the dead bodies, so we dragged them along on the ground. It is very painful for me to tell my experience in Auschwitz and Bergen-Belsen death camp, but to remain silent would allow the experience for 6 million Jewish lives with them. I was liberated in Bergen-Belsen by the British. I never felt hate, not even during the war. When the British came closer, the Nazis wanted to hide all the corpses. So they quickly promised us food if we would make big pits and bury the dead people. My strong belief in God sustained me. God was always with me, so I was never alone. God was my defender. Faith kept me going to stay alive one more day, one more hour, one more minute. It was all I hoped for. In Bergen-Belsen, I had typhus fever, transmitted by lice in clothing, often fatal. British soldiers bathed us and put us on a straw very gently. We were barely alive. The Holocaust cannot be forgotten. We must never suppress the memories, but instead pass them on to our children, that this inhuman crime would never ever happen again. We must teach mankind what evil, hatred, and prejudice can do. With seeing so many people suffer, I developed a sense of compassion for all suffering people. There are people today claiming the Holocaust never happened. When I came to this country from Germany, I was 5 years in Landsberg am Lech, it's close to Munich. I was there for 5 years in a DP camp because I had nowhere to go. And when I came to here to the United States, I didn't tell nobody about camps. I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't think I could even mention it. I just couldn't. I just didn't think I am able to. But one day I was watching television, and 2 men were there, and they said, the Holocaust is a lie, never happened. It's just Jewish people make it up. So when I heard that, I knew that it is my responsibility to tell the truth, because I had to tell the truth. And that's when I started telling. Before that, nobody, even my best friend that I worked with, they didn't know anything about me. But after that, I started telling the truth. If everybody could be made to realize, regardless of color, race, religion, people behave in the same way. We all have the same emotions, joys, and sorrows. Then prejudice would have no place on this floor. My hope and my prayer is for every child to grow up in peace, without hunger and prejudice. To remember means open our soul and make it more sensitive to suffering everywhere, and to injustice everywhere, and to the victims of humiliation everywhere. To forget means to side with the killers. It means to offer them a posthumous victory. What I must look to do is betray the dead I left behind or who left me behind. They were killed once. They must not be killed through my forgetfulness. I must end by telling you that I thank God every day that I'm so fortunate to be in the best country in the world, United States of America. It is good to be free. My life in Auschwitz and Bergen-Belsen to this day seems very unreal to me. As long as I'm able, I will continue speaking to students and churches about the Holocaust. As long as God will give me my health and my strength. 6 million Jews were killed. God wanted me to survive, so I could speak for those voices have been forever silenced. And I will continue trying to tell the story. I know I'm very lucky that faith in God was always in me. I was blessed from my parents who instilled faith in me. Now, I'm going to tell you a few things happened to me, and then you see the documentary in Bergen-Belsen. After that, you could ask me all the questions. I was in a high school, and I was talking like 600 students, and after I tell you, okay? I was talking to 600 students, and one student was sitting in the front. He was blonde and blue-eyed, very good-looking boy, and everybody made eye contact, and he was the only one who wouldn't make any eye contact with me. And I said to myself, he hates me so much that he doesn't want to look at me. And finished talking, he still didn't look at me. He just the whole time didn't look at me. It hurt me, but there's nothing I could do. And when I finished talking, and the principal said, I'll be right out. So I went on the side, and the good-looking boy came to me. He was really tall and good-looking. And he came to me, and he said, you hate me. I said, I hate you. I don't even know you. How could I hate you? He said, you have to hate me. And I said, why? He said, because I'm German. And when I go home visit my grandparents, they on the wall, the pictures, they were SS men, SS uniform on the wall. And look what happened to you, what happened to your family. You have to hate me. I said, what's your name? He said, Bill. I said, Billy, if I hate you, I would be just as bad as the Nazis were. I don't hate you, give me a hug. And he gave me a hug, and he went away happy, and I was happy too. I went to a church, and I had wall-to-wall people. I mean, it was a rainy day. I didn't think anybody going to show up. The church was full. And a question and answer, and a gentleman came to that question, and he says to me, he said to me, now don't tell me that you believe in God when God wasn't there for you. No, you can't believe in God. And I said to him, I believe in God, and God is there for me. Though I don't blame God for what happened. Everybody's born good. And some people just choose to be evil, and the Nazis choose to be evil. And God cried when all these bad things happen to good people. But it's the people who choose to be evil, and they do it. So don't blame God, and everybody agreed with me. Now I'm going to show you the documentary in Bergen-Belsen, and after that, all the questions you could ask me.
20,680,000 others cast their vote for Democrats, Communists, Christian Socialists, People's Party, etc., etc. Lack of unity among these parties, those Nazis proved fatal. The National Socialist Party was in power. They made many claims and many promises. The German people had embarked on that long, incredible journey that led seemingly out of chaos to unprecedented triumph. of the promise had been fulfilled. Austria 1938, Czechoslovakia 1938, Poland 1939, Norway, Denmark and France in quick succession. A place in the sun at last. True, they had lost their trade unions and a lot of books had been burned, but it seemed a good sort of bargain. One got to like being told what to do. Having one's views prescribed, especially if it meant a vista bright with the promise of grandeur and conquest. In the spring of 1945, the Allies, advancing into the heart of Germany, came to Bergen-Belsen. Neat and tidy orchards, well-stocked farms lined the wayside, and the British soldier did not fail to admire the place and its inhabitants. At least, until he began to feel a smell. It came from a concentration camp, a waste ringed with barbed wire and overlooked by watchtowers. Coming in from the flowering countryside, in spite of the frightful smell, things didn't seem so bad at first. Children smiled through the barbed wire, and women laughed and waved their hands. But Belsen camp was lost, and inside was a different story. They had not eaten for 6 days, and every soldier's stock of food was called into use. Water, too, had been cut off, and so the water cart was the most important thing to arrive. Most of the people seemed to be listless beyond hope and astonished. Hunger had probably affected them that way. We discovered that among this stench of disease and decay was something a bit worse than hunger. Moving vaguely on rickety skeleton legs, they were too ill to eat. How grateful they were for a kindly word or gesture. What misery to live amongst such unmentionable filth, with scarcely the strength to pick the lice which inevitably swarmed over them. They seemed accustomed to the smell and the horror. They had seen all there was to see. Huts were almost impossible to go near. They were full of tangled masses of people who had died slowly and painfully of starvation and disease, writhing in agony, helpless in puddles of excrement. It was difficult to imagine those orchards now, those rich fields where the stolid cattle cropped the juicy grass. For here, a few minutes away, inside the barbed wire, was nothing but filth and death. Dead prisoners hurled out and stacked in twisted heaps. Dead women like marble statues in the mire. This was what these inmates had to live among and die among. The dead which lay there were not numbered in hundreds, but in thousands. Not 1,000 or 2,000, but 30. Here is a pit where the inmates, in order to earn food, had to drag the bodies of their comrades, but they were too weak to keep up with the rate at which they were dying. So the pit remains only half full. The SS guards in charge of the camp were captured and lined up for examination. Their papers were gone through to confirm their status, their authority, each with his death head badge, each justified by German law. They were unashamed, well-fed, well-dressed and cheerful. There were women also on guard in Belsen, volunteers who came of their own free will to do their bit. Not sickly pale with hollow faces and hungry eyes, but well-fed and well-kept with a strutting arrogance. The commandant of the camp, Josef Kramer, was removed for trial as a war criminal by an Allied military court. There was an urgent need to get rid of as many bodies as possible, as quickly as possible, so all the SS were set to work. 500 Hungarian troops captured with the SS were started on a grave-digging operation. The SS themselves were made to do the unpleasant job they had forced the inmates to do. This, after all, was nothing to these men. They, the master race, had been taught to be hard. They could kill in cold blood, and it seemed to the British soldier fit and proper that the killers should bury the nameless, hopeless creatures they had starved to death. The faces of the bystanders showed just a little of the hate that Germany had inspired, and some of the anguish, too. Meanwhile, back at the camp, those who were still living were being attended to. Supplies of hot soup were prepared, and those who could eat unaided were fed as quickly as possible. There had been no water supply for 6 days. The Germans pleaded it had been cut. We laid on water in a few hours, and before 12 hours had passed, had sufficient to enable them to wash. Soap was provided, the first they had seen for months, and an orgy of washing ensued. A mobile bath unit was set up and provided hot water for baths. Inmates thought there was a stag at first, expected to be beaten for going near it probably. But when they learned that the dream was true, hot water. And these are the people the Nazis said delighted in being dirty. But the job of clearing up Belsen was a big one. The burgomeisters and civil officials of the neighborhood were brought to witness the scenes that had been caused as part of the Nazi scheme of things. This is not what they expected. It had been happening for years, but they shrugged their shoulders and beat their brows and tried to say it had been none of their business. But they were mostly silent. The SS men are not so spick and span now. 7 days of being shouted and cursed at and handling corpses by the hundred are beginning to tell. 7 dreadful days, the funerals still go on. There seems to be no end.
Ich heiße Dr. Fritz Klein, bin Arzt seit 1,5 Jahren in Konzentrationslagern, bin geboren am 24. November 88, also 58 Jahre alt, Deutscher aus Rumänien und spreche heute am 24. April 1945.
They were given an address by a British officer through a loudspeaker.
Sie, die die Väter und Brüder der deutschen Jugend darstellen, sehen vor ihren Augen einige der Söhne und Töchter, die einen kleinen Teil der direkten Verantwortlichkeit für diese Verbrechen tragen. Ein kleiner Teil nur und doch schwerer zu ertragen, als es der Menschenseele möglich ist. Aber wer trägt die wirkliche Verantwortung? Sie, die ihrem Führer erlaubt haben, diesen himmelschreienden Wahnsinn auszuführen.
If she wants to start, I'll start. You want some more than that? Okay. Say it again. I'm ready for it.
Take a deep breath and suck in what you've just seen. Unmöglich. Impossible. But Hilda would now welcome your questions. I will carry the microphone. Don't yell them out because she can't hear them unless I bring them to her. Jerry?
Just curious, how old were you when they first took you to the camp?
I don't know. I just celebrate my birthday every day. When I get up and I have bread, I have water, I have a lot of toilet tissue because I didn't get toilet tissue for all these years. Hot water, I could brush my teeth and take a shower. It's my birthday and my holiday. So every day I get up, I celebrate my holiday and my birthday. Thank you.
When you were in the camps, did you have any idea how the war was progressing? Or did all of a sudden these British soldiers show up one day? You know, what happened? Did you have any idea how the war was progressing during all those years?
Repeat it, please. Come here and repeat it.
Did you have any idea how the war was progressing? What was going on? You saw the
If I know what was going on in the war, no, I had no newspaper. No, I didn't know what was going on in the war. I had no newspaper, no nothing. I had no idea. So that's why when the bombs came, I was happy because I knew the war is still on. So when the bombs came, I thought, thank God the Nazis didn't win the war. So maybe we're going to be free someday. So that's why, no, I had no idea what's happening in the world. We didn't know nothing.
I have one question. There's no delicate way to ask it, but I've tried to read and find the information myself. When you see the post-Liberty pictures of Auschwitz, you see a lot of dead bodies laying around all over the ground. Was it that way every day?
they took the people, healthy people, just if they were too, no, when we arrived in Auschwitz, and mothers hold the children, then the mother went in the gas chamber. If the father hold the child, the father went in the gas chamber. If the parents, if they had enough people they already got for working, then they put everybody in the gas chambers. So that was Auschwitz. Now in Bergen-Belsen, we were sleeping with the dead was with me, under me, over me, everywhere. You couldn't even know. And when I was in Bergen-Belsen, and I still could work, I could drag the dead people, I dragged them and I got a little food. And we had a lot of dead people everywhere. Thank you, friend.
Next.
How old were you in 1940 when the Germans came into Czechoslovakia?
How old were you?
I don't know. When the Nazis occupied my country, when I went to Auschwitz, I was told I'm 18, and that's why I have to be. If you were younger, you were in the gas chambers. If they would know your age, that you're 12 or 4, all right, you would die. Because children, the Nazis didn't burn because they couldn't work. So, but if you worked and you were there, as long as you worked and they already saved you, you were okay. But he asked you how old you are, and you would say the real age, I would go in gas chambers.
Somebody over here? Down front, man. Get my exercise.
Okay, you get your exercise.
Right at the beginning of the film clip covering the entry of the British soldiers into Bergen-Belsen, there were healthy, well-dressed women behind the barbed wire smiling. Were they brand new arrivals, or were they propaganda plants from the town, or do you know who they were?
In Bergen-Belsen, you're talking about Bergen-Belsen? Well, we had some people, Jewish people, who they kept it separate from us. They were held, they didn't have to work, they were held, the Nazis kept them, that they could exchange them for prisoners of war in different countries. So they have their hair, they have their own clothes, and they didn't have to work. So you saw when they took a shower, they looked nice and healthy. Well, we didn't. I didn't look like that. Okay, none of us looked like that. But these people were better because they were saved to exchange. But the exchange never came, so they survived. But that's why they look healthier. They have their own hair, they wash their hair. We had no hair, we had nothing.
Yes, you talked about your relationship with God. In the camps, did you make friends? And did you need a friend to help? And both of you helped each other to survive?
If I made friends?
Yes, you did. You helped each other to survive.
Well, I'll tell you what. We always had to work from morning early and late at night. We couldn't have friends, we couldn't talk. We were always tired because we came home from work dark, because we had to stand in Celapil at night for 3-4 hours. So we were always tired and hungry and thirsty. So we didn't make friends, but we just had to work, and as long as we worked and we were healthy, you survived. But if you couldn't work and you got sick, well, if you got sick, you definitely died, because they didn't want you. They didn't need you if you were sick. They had to get rid of you. So as long as you were healthy and you could work, you said, but we couldn't make friends because we worked all the time, and we had to go to work when it was dark, and we came home when it was dark. So we just didn't we didn't talk. We could.